Hey, this is Rico Figliolini, host of Peachtree Corners Life. I want to welcome you here for this segment of the podcast. I have a special guest here. Her determination and willingness to be able to spend some time to be able to help brand the IB program at Norcross High School brings it to the segment. Her name is Stevie Bramble. Hey, Stevie.
Hi.
So I want to welcome her here, and we're going to have a discussion about what it took to be able to do that branding at Norcross High School. To be able to go through almost a 2 year span, I think, right?
Yeah.
But before we get into that, maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit and tell us about yourself.
So my name's Stevie Bramble. I just graduated Norcross High School in May, a week ago, and I've been working on this project for 2 years, and it's kind of like close to me because I'm kind of a creative person, so that's why I'm here to talk about it. So I'm excited.
Cool. Yeah, and you're graduating. Obviously, you're a grad in May, and you're heading off to UGA?
Yes, sir.
So UGA is going to have her.
Yes, I'm excited. Go Dogs.
So tell us what actually brought you to want to do this? I mean, how did this all start?
So I guess I was kind of walking down the halls of Norcross, and I kind of looked around, and I was like, this is very blank and bland, and I was in art at the time. I started art I think I started art my junior year, so I was kind of late in the art program at Norcross, and I was like doing all this creative stuff, and I was kind of like thinking to myself, I was just walking down the hallway and I saw lockers, and we never use lockers, and which is kind of funny.
Odd, right?
Yeah, it is kind of odd, but we don't really have time to go to our lockers during class change, but whatever. There's like these blank panels above the lockers, and I was kind of like, I was counting them. I just count them when I walk through the hallways, which is kind of weird, but and I counted, and there's enough panels for the word Norcross to fit in each panel. So I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. So I wrote that down, and then I would find all these blank spaces on the walls when I was walking through, and I was like, oh, there could be like a Norcross N there, because the Norcross N is very symmetrical, and it's like fits in the square like box of the wall. And I was like, oh, that could go there. So I just wrote all these ideas down, and then I started talking to my peers and my teachers at the time. So I just started the IB program that year.
Right.
So I talked to my language arts teacher, like, oh, what do you think of this idea about the lockers and the murals? So at first I thought like maybe I could put paint on the walls, like paint the Norcross N on.
Right.
So I, presented this idea to my teachers and my peers, and they were like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, because we have this huge mural in the middle of the atrium,
right,
made of paint, like it's painted on. And so I was like, oh, we could paint more. But I was wrong, so I presented that to.
You found obstacles at the beginning.
I did. That's why it took so long.
Right.
But I presented that original idea to my principal, Mr. Will Bishop,
right,
and he told me that the school board does not approve of paint because of they paint the school like every 2 years or something. So I had to think of something different.
Okay.
So
because otherwise they'd paint over that.
Right.
Right.
So that's how it kind of started.
Okay.
And then it just progressed throughout.
Okay.
That.
So let's show a little piece. Well, let's show what it ends up being.
Yeah.
But then this way people can know what it looks like. So let's pop that in. I have another Norcross High School student here,
Right.
Sophia Magana, helping me behind the camera, doing this. And so what you're seeing, which I don't see yet because of the latency on this, is actually the branding in the comments, right? So that's what ended up being. That's what's there now, I'm assuming.
Right. Yes, it is.
All right. So your first thing was, obviously you go to the administration after you went to your peers and your students, and they tell you, okay, this is what you can't do, and so what can you do? What was your thought at that point? Did you decide maybe you should just give this up, or did you decide, well, no? I mean, what was the thought process?
So after he said that, we kind of, at that point I had during class, which was, I know, not very good, I was writing ideas. I had pieces of paper,
right,
3 pieces of paper with all my scribbled notes on it, and I was like, okay, this sketches of what it could be. And I went to Mr. Bishop with that present idea. He told me, we can't paint,
Right.
And so he did offer something like a different material called vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sure.
I mean, most people know what vinyl is, and it's like a wall adhesive, so it like you can peel it off easily.
Right.
And so we were kind of like digging into that and looking at some companies, because he uses like this one company that I use called Life Touch. We ended up using them, and so I guess he just gave me that idea, and we began, building that from there.
Okay, so a bit of a collaboration.
Right, yeah.
And
He kind of helped me out with that idea.
Okay. So once you had that idea and once you realized that you could do this, what was the next step that you took?
So my idea for the school was throughout the school. So it wasn't just in the cafeteria in the front like we have now. It was throughout the entire school.
Mm-hmm.
And it was throughout like the pods and stuff. But that we had a budget, obviously.
Right.
So
the school gave you a budget also?
They did.
Oh,
they did, which was very generous of them.
Okay.
Mr. Bishop set aside a certain amount of money to allow this project to happen.
Okay.
And I'm very grateful for him that he did that. So we figured out from my ideas of what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I should mention this. One of my friends, Camila Pena, which is in my IB Language Arts class junior year,
Mm-hmm.
and she's really good at Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave her blank pictures of the wall all around the school. Like I went around and took pictures, and she photoshopped some Norcross designs on the pictures.
Okay.
Yeah, I should have shown you, but that was like the original idea that I showed Mr. Bishop.
Oh, cool.
And
So he actually was able to actually see what you were going to do.
I should have mentioned that. It was like a visual representation,
Sure.
Which was like
That's
awesome.
a great way of doing it.
It was awesome, yeah. So, that it was throughout the school, and from there we picked which of the pictures we would want to do.
Okay.
And we ended up picking that, the one in the front with Norcross, and then the pillowcases on the soundboards in the cafeteria.
Okay.
And those made up the money.
Excellent. So I mean, you spent some time doing this. I mean, this was over 2 years?
Right, it did take 2 years. So I was a little frustrated, I guess, at the amount of time it was taking, which, I mean, I guess anyone would be, but I am dealing with the school board, so it takes time for...
Right. So at what point actually did you deal with the school board? Because you were really dealing with the principal. Did you have to do anything directly with the school board?
Yeah, I didn't really have to go in front of the school board, but I did have to, I told Mr. Bishop about everything, and he actually he made a proposal, and he sent it to the school board. And they have meetings every Friday or something, so he was like, we have to wait until then, and they still wouldn't send it in, and he's like, this is how they work, they're very slow, and he's like, it should be good, but it was just a lot of waiting,
Yeah.
So I was getting kind of antsy. I would come up to him in the hallway and at 7:20 in the morning, so have you heard anything? I would send him emails. I would chase him down the hallway. No, there was at one point I was so frustrated with the timing. I was in my first period art class,
Yes.
and we weren't doing anything, and I was like, can I have a pass to go talk to Mr. Bishop? And my teacher was like, okay. And
Who wants to go to talk to the principal? I'm sending myself.
No, I know. So I walk towards the office that he's usually in, his office.
Right.
And I see him in the hallway, and I yell his name, and Miss Mason, Sophia knows Miss Mason.
Mm-hmm.
She's one of the counselor or APs or something, and she's yelling down the hallway with me, trying to get Mr. Bishop's attention. And I got it, and he told me I think again it's coming. It's
Right.
And then finally I got that the school board, it just took a lot of time.
They are. It's a funny thing is they're a political body, and it's very deliberate.
Right.
And they're slow for a reason. I mean, some things are slow. I mean, for a high school kid or for anyone that might look at this and say, well, why did this take so long? Sometimes it's just the nature of the beast, right?
You're right.
And you had a lot of patience, but you also had determination because, I mean, to go chase him down and email him and keep going. That's pretty good, actually.
Thank you. I just didn't want to start an idea. I wanted to finish it. Like I didn't. And he actually told me when, like, one of the last meetings we had, because we had multiple, and he told me, like, I'm really glad you've been doing this, because usually kids have ideas and they present them to me, but they don't go into like effect. They don't happen.
Yeah.
So that kind of made me like, I don't know. I was like happy that actually happened, because I guess I just, I wanted it to happen.
Well, a few things there I see. One is you had a champion in him.
Oh.
Because he was willing to do what it took to get you to where you needed to be. So he was a champion. That's what, in sales, that's what you want, right? You're selling someone, you want a champion that's on your side.
Right.
Because someone else above has to make that decision, let's say. So if that champion's with you, so you found one in him.
He really did help me out a lot. Like, more than I thought he would. He made those phone calls to the school board. Like, he made the phone calls to Life Touch, which is the company that we used. And shout out to Brad Taylor. He's one of the like Life Touch executives that helped me a lot. And he was like, we would have meetings with the Life Touch board.
Right.
And and talk. Okay. And I was like, Mr. Bishop would tell me before I go in, he's like, you're leading this meeting. Right. Like, you're gonna tell them what you want and stuff. And so he kind of guided me along, and Brad, worked with me, and we figured it out.
So you this is so funny. I mean, this is what the IB program is about, in a way, right? It's about taking different parts of life and teaching and education across different disciplines. And what you learned is a bit of sales.
Right, I did.
Right? Also coordinating a project over a period of time, that's just like that. And it's true to some degree, I think, what Bishop says when it comes to young people, that sometimes the follow-through is not there. Yeah, and what I find also when I work, not with Sophia necessarily, when I work with other people, is that you sort of have to give that rope a little bit, because if they're not going to tug on it and they're not going to continue on, like call and just pursue, then that means they
don't have the drive.
Correct. Yeah. And if they don't have the drive, maybe the talent is not there either. And you don't need the talent necessarily, as long as you have the drive. I mean, the talent will come. You can learn these things.
Right, yeah. So, pretty much, I mean, I definitely felt like what you said, I definitely felt like I kind of was to the point where I was, like, really on him about, like, Mr. Bishop, about, like, what's going on, like, get me in the loop and stuff. And I actually went and I asked him for Brad's number, or for like the Life Touch number. Okay. And I called them, and I started calling Brad maybe a month ago. And I was like, so what's the deal? When's the installation date? Like, I started calling, and then he started calling me back, and he was like in Minnesota one time, and he's like, hey Stevie, like, I'm in Minnesota, just got out of a meeting, but I can talk for like 5 minutes. So it was like very, like, I kind of got to a point where I had to like initiate all the talk.
Yeah, that's funny. That's almost like a project manager, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, really, in a way, that's what that is, right? You're coordinating these things, and you're trying to bring everyone together and trying to find that schedule. Yeah. And that's kind of. Yeah. And it's talent. So who did the graphics, the actual graphic work?
Yeah. Oh, so it was Waterboy Graphics.
Waterboy. Okay. What is that?
It was so it went through like. Life Touch went through a third party company in Texas. Okay. And they, I'm pretty sure. Sorry. They
created the graphics.
Right. Or? So Life Touch sent in the info to the one in Texas, which I wasn't sure they were. I didn't even know they were doing that. That's why it took so long. Right. I think because when you're working through a third party, it kind of takes forever, Yeah. So.
Forever is a good word.
So yeah, it's over exaggerating, but. So they did that. I'm pretty sure it is Waterboy Graphics. Yeah.
So someone did the graphics. They ended up in the final result. So when did that actually all come in?
The final result?
Yeah.
That's funny. You ask. I was wondering that too, and I figured out so the last month of school, I was in and out of school because I was taking IB classes and IB tests and AP tests. Right. And a lot of the seniors just weren't there because they were taking tests or whatever. And I went in one day and I was like, after my test, I went into Mr. Bishop and I was like, so what's going on? And he's like, we figured out, like, he's like, I heard that the installation date is going to be next Thursday, and next Thursday was after the last day of school. And so I was kind of like disappointed,
wow.
and I was like, I thought that it was supposed to be done during school, but then I was like, okay, you know what? As long as it gets done, it gets done. And then I realized that graduation practice is Friday.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, perfect.
Yeah, yes.
Like, they'll still see it. So I was really happy. We went into the graduation practice, and it was all up. And I was like, my family came in and saw it, and my friends, like, I didn't talk to my friends about it for a while. They didn't know it was still happening, because I wasn't gonna just talk about it over and over again.
Right.
And then they saw it, and they were like, wow, like, it actually got done. I was like, yes, it did, finally.
How'd that feel, walking in
It felt
and
really
seeing
good.
it?
It felt really good. Like, I created that, and my friends definitely reminded me. This one girl, she was like, you created this, Stevie, like, this is awesome. And I was like, thank you. I'm glad it's done.
After all that time.
Yeah.
Wow, to be able to see it just before you graduated.
Right, I didn't realize how, like, much at the beginning, I didn't know how much time I would need to put into it, but.
No, you never know. I mean, especially a project like this, right? You just
Right.
you never know. Do you, what did you learn from this?
I learned that I learned a lot of different things. From, I guess, the school, I learned patience is key. And when you're working with, like, political bodies and stuff like that, you just gotta take the reins sometimes. And also I learned, like, don't be afraid to go after what you want, because, like, you're not gonna get something done if you don't go after it, Like, you have to keep going. You can't give up or anything. There were times I was kind of like, okay, should I keep going with this? Like, I don't know if it, and that kind of showed determination, that it taught me a lot of that. And then also my dad taught me, like, my parents they were both like, okay, they're very supportive of it. They were like, so what's going on? Like, they would ask me, and obviously I'd get frustrated, like, I don't know, like, I don't know, I'll figure it out, I'll tell you. And they kind of, like, kept me on my toes, which was good. So that taught me to, again, just keep going, like, don't stop, don't give up.
Like accountability partner, right? Someone that keeps asking you, and does get frustrating though, right?
Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah, I can imagine. I have kids, and I have 3 kids. 2 of them went to Norcross, and they're graduates now. They're both graduated. And when I ask them sometimes about things ongoing, they're like, I don't know. Or like, I'm like, all right, relax, chill out.
I know, it's just a question.
It's just trying to get to where we're going. But so there's frustration, obviously, and that type of thing. But you did go through it like that, and you learned some principles. And, the fact that you had to also to work in a group in a way now, because
yes.
I mean, and different venues and stuff, different people you had to learn from also, right? So you had a champion, you had the school board, which I say is a political body. I shouldn't say that really, it's an education body, but they're elected to the posts, right? So I get that.
Yeah.
And I get the frustration sometimes young people have with it. I'm so used to it after a while, I guess. I realized nothing takes.
Yeah.
You cannot get anything done quickly in government. And sometimes that's not a bad thing. So I won't make a political comment on this show, on this segment, but sometimes that's good. Things don't happen so fast.
Yeah.
It just depends on what it is, I guess. What are you going to be doing with graduation now, going to UGA? Or what are you doing this summer? Planning,
this summer?
now that you're all done.
Well, I guess, I'm doing, like, I'm traveling a lot with my family before I head off to college, and then pretty much I'm, like, working a lot and trying to get some money for college.
Good. Are you working with your dad?
No, so
Her dad, by the way, I'll just let you know, owns Noble Finn, great restaurant. Thank Cliff. Thank you, Cliff. And Cliff was actually the one that sent me. He said, you might want to know about this at Norcross, and that was really cool of him to do that.
Yeah, he's always
a doting father.
Looking out for me, yeah.
So, but that's cool. So, what do you want to do at UGA? What do you want to major?
So my intended major right now is international business.
Okay.
Because I do love to travel, and, like, I want to kind of look at. This is kind of a side note. I went to Europe with Norcross when I was between my sophomore and junior year, and we went for 2 weeks with my friends and stuff, and that actually inspired me a little bit on the Norcross thing, because I saw all these like art. I mean, it's not the same.
Did you go with the art class, I guess, or an art teacher on that 2-week trip?
The who? I went with the Spanish.
Oh, okay.
The Spanish program, yeah.
I
So
gotcha.
that all the art everywhere on the walls and everything, how everything was filled.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, okay, and then I go into Norcross and I'm like, this is so boring. So I had to do something about that. That kind of inspired me a little.
Great. So you want to get into business? So
yeah, like my dad.
is your dad that inspiration to do that?
Yeah, he is. He worked really hard to get into like where he is now, and he's in business. He does like a lot of finance and stuff. So he definitely inspired me to like do that.
And your experience here didn't dissuade you from that?
Sorry?
Your experience at Norcross with working through different things didn't change that mind?
Yeah,
because that's what business
I know
can be
this. It did. It's like it connects very very well.
All right, cool. All right, we're with Stevie Bramble, Norcross High School grad, heading to UGA. Determined, learned a lot this year, last 2 years.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to have this time with Stevie to be able to discuss what she's done.
Thank you, Rico.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, guys.